In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial from my group on how to cut this stylish blazer blouse with a double pleat at the front. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So to start, I'm going to start from the back pattern of this dress, which is the shoulder to bust. I'll start by marking the shoulder to bust and the shoulder to waistline, then the blouse length. You can measure or use any blouse length of your choice, but for my blouse length I added like 5 extra inches from the waistline, but I'll be doing an additional 2 inches for the pointy effect that we have at the lower part of this dress. Now after this, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2, and I'll add ½ inch because this dress has a sleeve. So after I'm done marking that, I'm going to find my chest line, but I'll come down by 1 inch first. Now for the neckline, use 3 to 4 inches. You can use 3.5 or 4 inches or 3 inches. So I marked 1 inch for the depth. So I'll connect from that point, from the width down to the depth of the neckline of the back. So after I'm done marking that, I'm going to go ahead from the shoulder to that 1 inch slope I came down at the shoulder point. So I'm going to find my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I will mark. Now I'm going to place my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line. So after this, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half again at my shoulder, at the chest line area, sorry. And after marking that, I'll go ahead to connect it all the way to the upper part of my pattern. After I'm done connecting, what I'll do is to divide it into 2 equal parts. That is my chest line area. I'm going to find the midpoint of the armhole. Now after marking that, I'll come down by ½ inch. At the chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. From that my bust circumference divided by 4, I'm going to connect from the midpoint to that point, and then from the ½ inch to the upper part of my pattern. Now after I'm done marking this, the next step I'll take is to start marking my dart for this pattern. So I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I'm going to mark this starting from the bust to the waist and to the blouse length. So I'm marking the back pattern first before going ahead. Mark the front pattern of this dress. Now I'll place my ruler and I'm going to connect. Now at the front pattern of this dress, we have like a double pleat on it. So there are different methods to get that. You can use a slash and spread, or you can use a double dart technique. So I added ½ inch on both sides of my waistline, came down by 4 inches after my waistline. So at the upper part of the bust, I came down by 1 inch, which I connected my dart, and I'll connect the other side also. So I'll go ahead to connect it and then connect at the lower part of the dart at both sides of my dart. So the next step I'm going to take is to insert my measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll add my sewing allowance. Here I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. At the hip, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll add my sewing allowance also. Now for this pattern is a blazer, so you don't really need much sewing allowance. It's like a blazer blouse. 1 inch is okay for your sewing allowance. If you want to add much, you can even use, maybe you can use 1.5 inches. So I'll come down here by 2 inches, which I'm going to connect to the upper part. So before going ahead to connect, I'll come up by 1.5 inches, or you can use 2 inches, and I'll connect this all the way to the lower part. So I'm just trying to create that pointy effect at the back part of this blazer dress. That way we have added additional length to the blouse at the back, right? So also remember that whatever you're sewing, the joining will be stopping at the waistline. That is, you're going to fold in the sewing allowance of this dress. You're going to stop sewing at the waist, that is joining it at the waist, and then you can fold in the sewing allowance by the side, or you can use your hemming gum to hold it down by the side. So sorry for the noise at the background of this video. So after cutting this out, this is what I have for the back. Now let's move over to the front pattern. So for the front pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements just that, like we did for that of the back pattern. So here's the chest line, bust, under bust. I marked my shoulders under bust here, mark the waistline and also the blouse length. So use the same blouse length you use for the front. This is just like a blazer dress. I didn't make use of a bust that. So for the neckline, I marked 3 inches. So just like I said, you can extend your neckline from 3 inches to 4 inches, which I also went ahead to like extend later. So next, I went ahead to mark my dart, which is my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I marked this all the way to my blouse length. Now I placed my ruler and I'm going to go ahead to draw out a straight line. So after drawing this, I'll extend this dart all the way to my blouse length, right? So remember, just like I said, the front part of this dress has a double pleat, and I'll be using the double dart method to do this. So I added half inch on both sides of the waistline, blouse length and under bust. Now I'll take this all the way to the upper part of the bust, and I will take this down and also reconnect the other side, then reconnect this to the blouse length. So you can use a slash and spread method to achieve this double pleat, but if you don't want to go through the stress of slashing and pleating your fabric, which might be a bit stressful, you can use the additional dart technique. So you're going to be sewing your dart from this point, then taking it all the way down. You will not be getting to the bust point. That is, you come down by 1 inch from the bust and start sewing your dart. Be sewing this dart in front of your dress. So now add your bust. Mark your bust circumference divided by 4 and add your sewing allowance. Mark your under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake you have there. Go ahead to replace it and then add your sewing allowance to this pattern. So we are going to add an additional dart to this dress also, but we'll be replacing the dart. Go ahead to mark your waist circumference divided by 4. After marking your waist circumference, measure the dart intake you place and then add your sewing allowance. Here I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4 at the blouse length, and then I'll also go ahead to pick this dart intake of 1 inch here, replace it and then add my sewing allowance. So after this, I'm just going to go ahead to connect this, starting from the bust to the under bust, from the under bust to the waist, and from the waist to the blouse length, right? So after you're done connecting this, the next step is to adjust your neckline. So just like I said, for the neckline, you can use within 3 to 4 inches there, and I'm going to come down like half inch. I'm going to come up like half inch from my chest line, and I'm going to be connecting this. I'm going to connect this all the way to the lower part of my pattern this way, and after I'm done connecting, this is what I have. So here from the waistline, I'll come in by half inch. Now depending on how open you want this to be, use within 1 inch to 1.5 inches and connect. Now I'll be adding an extension to the lower part, so you can add 2 inches, 2.5. The front looks more elongated, so I added an additional 2.5. So please take your measurement first before knowing what to add to the front. Now from here, I'll come up by 1.5 just like we did for the back pattern, and I'll go ahead to reconnect this. So because of this that we are having here, you also need to blend the dart side out first. So while blending out, I'll also go ahead to extend my dart legs, because this dart will be getting to the lower parts this way. So this is what I have. Now you can blend it up this way, or you can face your dart the other way and blend out. So when I mark my second dart, we'll be doing reblending this side of the lower part of this dress. So you'll be sewing this your dart at the front part of your fabric, right? You'll be sewing this at the front part of your fabric. Now I'm marking an additional 2.5 inches, so I will draw a straight line. You can use 2 inches after your dart line if you don't want much space before the other pleating. The dart, I added additional ½ inch on both sides. So note, I'll be replacing these darts that we are going to sew out at the other side of the pattern. This is so that it won't reduce your measurement. And for the second dart, it's as if it started at the underbust. So now I'm going to also sew these darts just like you'll be sewing this. And also remember that 1 inch that intake we marked for the second dart, replace it by the side of your pattern, that is adding it back to your pattern so that you don't shorten your measurement. Then I'll now go ahead to like blend it back to the dress. Go ahead to blend out my pattern so that it will be visible for you to see. Now also at the front part, be adding button to it and making a loop all the way to the neckline of this dress. So after outlining, this is what I have. And also note that you'll be sewing out your dart, like you'll be sewing out this dart in front. So just like I said, I will be blending out this dart at the front. So depending on how you want to place your dart and sew, now I'll face it this way and blend. So I'll also pick it and blend so that when I'm cutting, I'll cut exactly what I want and then sew up the dart. So after I'm done blending out the lower part, I'll just go ahead to cut this out. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut this out, and if you have any question, please go ahead to ask. So this is what the pattern will be looking like, and obviously you're turning this up with your lining, so you can go ahead to pleat this out before placing your lining to cut out. But on the main fabric, you have to like spread it out and cut out, then sew up the darts and turn it with your line.